is by changing the government. I see no other solution unless they have a nightmare. Let's hope Najib has a nightmare one day and dreams that he's in Fukushima. Then we might have a change in policy. But, you know, I have my doubts.
Give him a 1 week holiday in Fukushima.
Well, we lose the
Right.
war.
Yes, why not?
Thank you. So basically, Dr. McCoy share with us, kalau ada satu bencana, walaupun dalam sejarah nuklear bencana yang besar, yang major tak banyak, sejak insiden kecil sebenarnya everyday ada. If you do Google alert on nuclear energy incident, everyday ada. Lampu tak tutup lah, overheating lah, everyday ada insiden yang kecil. Tapi insiden besar seperti di Fukushima, Chernobyl jarang berlaku. Tetapi jika berlaku, kesan dia maha dahsyat. And mengenai change of government tu, I am not so sure because saya pun tak nampak, belum nampak apa-apa stand daripada di ada parti mengenai Loji Nuklear. Kecuali daripada parti DAP jika tidak salah. Tapi Aman akan approach semua parti politik tanpa mengira sama ada daripada parti kerajaan atau parti pembangkang untuk mendapatkan feedback mereka mengenai nuklear. So tanpa melengahkan masa, saya ingin menjemput Prof. Kekal untuk memberitahu kita adakah beliau setuju bahawa Loji Nuklear tidak selamat.
Tentu tak selamat lah, bahaya sangat. Tapi Najib, saya ada satu rawatan bagi dia. Kita hantar di bomo hijau, cuba convince him go back to renewable energy. Tadi doktor ada sebut itu kejadian accident nuklear. Tapi saya rasa dia dah lupa dalam nuclear plant adalah sangat bahaya. Satu kajian Gardner, Profesor Gardner, dia nampak dia kaji ramai pekerja dalam nuclear plant. In case you want to work for nuclear power plant, okay, especially men, you ada 2 biji telur, selalu jalan-jalan sekeliling nuclear power plant. Setiap saat 24 jam, 7 hari, telur anda sudah kena radiasi. Ini selamat tak? Dia kata, oh ini permissible level. Dia tak kata selamat. Permissible level. Kerana dia punya kajian sudah menampakkan ramai si pekerja, dia punya telur sudah kena radiasi. Ini dia sendiri masih kuat, dia masih boleh produce banyak lagi anak-anak. Tapi anak-anak kena radiasi. So they go to the second generation method. Very bad thing. But like we have said before, there are many incidents. I mean, this actually some country like France, they even have like an OSA. People are not allowed to report nuclear accidents. Okay, they are not allowed to report this accident because I think partly because it's owned by the company, so the share will go down. Yes, I think. The other thing I want to say is that tak selamat lagi dari segi ekonomi lah, tak selamat sebab negara kita kecil saja kan. Kalau ada pelepasan radiasi yang di sekeliling nuclear plant ini, kelapa sawit kan, ekspor kelapa sawit kita sekarang sudah 100 bilion. Dan sekelilingnya industri pekerja ramai. You will imagine Fukushima when it happened. They try to offer us tour to Japan. They offer food in where is it? Giant, they offer me food. They are canned food. But they don't tell us the radiation. Okay. So if we cannot export our oil palm, that's $100 billion business, and then industry around it, the people, million people, juta-juta orang bekerja di industri kelapa sawit, ini hancur ekonomi kita lah. Jadi tak selamat bukan saja dari segi kesihatan saja, dari segi ekonomi juga.
Yeah, I think I was so overwhelmed by Najib's green that I really forgot to mention one or two things. I think the thing about radiation is that it's odorless and it's invisible. So if there is radiation in the environment, you have no idea that it is there until years later when you discover you've got leukemia or cancer or whatever it is. So it's a very pernicious and very dangerous situation. There was a scientific study in 2008 in the United States, and they showed that the leukemia death rates in children living near nuclear power plants had risen sharply in the last 20 years. So the leukemia death rates in children living near nuclear power plants in the United States has risen sharply in the last 20 years. And a German scientific study in 2008 found a 60% increase in cancers, an 11% increase in leukemia among young children living near all the 16 large German nuclear power plants between 1980 and 2003. So there have been two scientific studies, United States and Germany, where they found an increase in cancers and leukemia among children and even adults who live near nuclear power plants. So it's a very serious situation really, because you really can't detect radiation, low dose radiation, medium dose radiation. So, and you know, we now have the means of using renewable energy, because it's still in, I would say, medium stages of development. But Germany is phasing out all its nuclear power plants and concentrating on renewable energy. If Germany can do it, surely other countries can do the same. Denmark is using wave power. Sorry. Sorry, I hope you heard the first part.
No.
Yes, we did.
Right, in Germany, in 2008, they found a 60% increase in cancers, an 11% increase in leukemia among young children living near all of Germany's nuclear power plants. And that was between 1980 and 2003. So we have a very serious problem with managing nuclear power plants. Yes, of course, Germany, as I said, is phasing out its nuclear energy in place of renewable energy. So I think if Germany can do it, surely other countries can do it. And other countries are beginning to do it. Denmark is using wave power, and lots of other countries are using solar power, wind power, and it should be really a mix of renewable energy, and of course energy efficiency.
Thank you. So basically ada dua, tidak selamat tadi tu. Pertama, tidak selamat jika ada kemalangan di loji nuklear. Kedua, tidak selamat bagi mereka yang tinggal berdekatan dengan loji nuklear. Jika pergi ke page Anak Malaysia Anti Nuklear, ada link boleh lihat kajian-kajian, laporan-laporan kesihatan seperti yang Dr. Ron McCoy cakap tadi. Boleh lihat dalam sekitar 100 km radius, bara, thyroid, leukemia, generational defect and mutation, maksudnya kalau ibu kena atau bapa kena boleh diwarisi oleh anak-anak, bukan X-Men tapi mutation, defect. So maknanya ada DNA dia rosak, mutation, anak dia pun dapat. Dan ini untuk mereka yang tinggal berdekatan dengan loji nuklear. Jadi tidak selamatnya ada dua. Satu, jika loji nuklear ada kemalangan ataupun dibom pengganas, ataupun tiba-tiba taufan kat Kedah tu jadi besar. So satu, tidak selamat loji nuklear itu sendiri. Satu lagi, mereka yang tinggal berdekatan atau berhampiran dengan kawasan loji nuklear tersebut. Jadi kita minta Prof Lanchan untuk berkongsi juga mengenai keselamatan loji nuklear ni selamat atau tidak?
Okay, bagi dari segi keselamatan, memanglah siapa pun boleh janji kemelangan tidak akan berlaku. Sama ada nuklear, hydro, coal atau mana-mana, walaupun jalan di jalan raya, jalan kaki. Jadi, looking at that perspective, we should not come to a conclusion from that perspective. Some of the figures that Dr. McCoy mentioned in terms of cost baffles me, because I've been following these costs, and definitely nuclear is not 274% higher cost than wind, nor 150% higher than PV. And nuclear provides constant energy at a capacity factor of 90%, whereas PV and wind provides much lower energy. In Malaysia, wind will provide probably 2% capacity factor. PV is about 14%. So that cost alone is not enough. You should look at what is called levelized cost of energy. The cost per kilowatt hour, not per kilowatt, because that's what the consumers pay. Bagi saya dan aman menubuhkan semua website, web links yang bagi data-data sebenar, supaya everyone can look at it, you compare, God has given every one of us brains, let's use the brains to realize, assess what it is and come to a decision on ourselves. In my own perspective, as I said right from the beginning, I'm not anti-nuclear, but I try to keep nuclear as far away as possible. Now, 3 Mile Island did not create, I think, was supposed to have created only 3 deaths because of radiation. Chernobyl was an accident waiting to happen, just like the Batam floods and disaster at Kekal Islands. And I've seen that from first hand, being ex-LLM, from as early as 1967. Fukushima was a very serious accident, and nobody can downplay the seriousness of the accident. Nuclear, the accidents are rare. They don't have no accidents. They have accidents, incidents, but those incidents are not radiation related. But if you get one incident like Fukushima, it destroys all the credence and credibility on safety of nuclear power plants. Of course, every time there's an accident, the safety standards are raised, so you expect to be more safe for the future. You can design things against certain barriers, that you set the standards. And that is why I say it should be as late as possible to get more safe. But importantly is we should control our waste of energy, so that we can go ahead, get more out of ourselves, out of the energy we use, without spending more, either on cost or building new power plants, and energy efficiencies again. Now, renewable energy, photovoltaics, I gave a present, in fact, I was involved in MBI PV for 5 years and was part of the team that set up the SIDA in the first place. But I have called photovoltaics 310 megawatts, because 1 megawatt of PV can give about 1,200 to 1,400 megawatt hours a year. Coal or combined cycle gas can give up to 7,000 plus, and nuclear can give over 8,000. So this is a factor that has to be looked at. There are a lot of what I call PV fanatics who say photovoltaics is the future for the world. To me, that's what I have heard called load of male cattle fecal droppings, or bullshit in short, because there's no way photovoltaic can supply this. People try to relate this to smart grids. I think that's an absolute idiocy, because there are large photovoltaic farms in USA, Spain, and you need large grid systems to feed that power into the places where it's needed. And since photovoltaic operates for about 15% of the hours in a year, you are using that assets for only about 15% of the time. That's a very costly issue. Safety for nuclear, I will not dispute that. Radiation-related health hazards, I will not dispute that, because I don't look at that as an engineer. But what I say is, let's give everyone the links to the various sites so that you can see for yourself, assess for yourself what is that.
Prof. Lachar, before you go, I'm not letting you go yet. You mentioned coal, hydro, solar, everywhere ada accident, betul? Ada accident kan? Kat mana-mana pun boleh berlaku, betul? Siapa cakap nuklear je bahaya? arang punya plant kalau meletup bahaya juga kan. Tapi kalau kita
Coal mines is worse.
coal mine is worse, okay. But in term of numbers can you say that jika coal mine dekat Malaysia statistically compare dengan nuclear, if an incident happen, what will be the worst? It's like comparing statistik bawa kereta dengan naik kapal terbang. Betul tak? Naik kereta memang statistik kemalangan tinggi, tapi naik kapal terbang sekali kapal terbang jatuh, the whole the whole passengers gone kan. This is it's not a perfect analogy, but in a way kita boleh gambarkan macam tu lah kan. Naik kereta macam Loji coal mines lah kan. Kalau nuklear macam naik kapal terbang, sekali dia hilang sampai sekarang tak jumpa kan. Something like that. What do you think, Prof. Lalchan?
Nobody can deny that any nuclear accident can be absolutely horrendous and catastrophic. But the total number of accidents and deaths in others, including mining for uranium, coal, hydro, probably, at least to the information that I've seen, has exceeded the deaths created from nuclear power, whether it's in terms of power plants or in terms of mining. And that includes the deaths from Fukushima. But I recognize Dato's comments. The deaths and the consequences of those radiation will not be seen for perhaps decades and maybe generations. And I recognize and accept that situation.
And we call that Mudarat Kekal, Prof. Lalchan. Dr. Ron, you want to add?
Yeah, just one.
Maybe a quick one?
Yeah, I think when it comes to renewable energy, I think the criticism about solar energy from Lalchan is correct. But what some governments are now doing is, instead of having a huge centralized grid, they are now having smaller grids in different parts of the country so that solar panels can feed into these smaller grids and then redistribute it to smaller areas. So this is a new.
That's still not correct.
Yeah, but this is a new concept that's being developed, where you change your mindset about having one huge national grid supplying the electricity for that whole country into smaller grids in different parts of your country, and feed in your solar and other forms of renewable energy. But these are things that can be worked out. And renewable energy it's a very early stage, not experimental, but an early stage of development. And I'm sure that if we put our minds to it and if we invest in renewable energy, we will find these solutions.
Just a quick comment. Trima, I think you are obsessed with this death. I think we are not talking so much of death. It's like Trima Island, three death. In fact, the whole Trima Island area, the whole United States came up against nuclear power because of this quantum, neglect, human error, management issues. Say, you thought like a good technocrat, yeah, it's good. I mean, nice. If you're running power plant, I'm okay. I think next to my house. This is my house. I think okay. This Korean fella came to Malaysia, UK, saying that Korean people want to build nuclear plant in their house, in the housing areas. It's nonsense. There's no such thing. That was before Fukushima, of course. But I think the important issue is that I think many of these considerations, in the West, is not happening here. Okay, we have first class, world class design of the power plant. We have a second class construction. Then we have Bangladesh operating the plant, and after a few years, okay, this is our problem sometimes. So I would agree with Dr. McCoy. We need to see very, very clearly where we can solve this problem. We cannot just see technical issues only.
Thank you very much. So, dasar bantahan pertama tidak murah, dasar bantahan kedua tidak selamat. Dasar bantahan ketiga, bagaimana kita mengurus yang tidak bersih tadi. Kalau lihat dalam page Aman kita boleh lihat people will argue kata nuclear is clean. Tapi jika dilihat daripada the whole cycle of nuclear, the whole cycle daripada pelombongan biji uranium untuk diproses tenaga dan sampai ke pelupusan sisa-sisa radioaktif. Adakah ia clean? Is it bersih? Adakah ia bersih? Jadi saya jemput Prof. Ketan untuk explain mengenai sisa-sisa radioaktif dan life cycle nuklear tu, daripada pelombongan sampai ke sisa-sisa radioaktif tu, kitaran dia tu, adakah ia sumber tenaga yang bersih ataupun sumber tenaga green energy yang seperti propagandakan sekarang. Terima kasih.
Dan dari segi pelombongan tentu tidak bersih dan selamatlah, sangat berbahaya. Tapi laporan tidak banyak di internet. Walaupun kita nampak Dr. Rosli Patel berlibat dalam Hanford, at least the word, Dr. Alice Stewart, yang mendapat banyak kesalahan, jadi menyebabkan ramai orang sakit. Tapi ini tak keluar dalam record official. That's our problem. Selalu ni tak keluar. Okay. Processing plant tentu bahaya juga lah. Tapi sebab Loji processing ni selalu di negara third world lah. Selalu, kecuali I think Australia, okay, we got better protection for workers, okay. But if kalau you tanya orang asli Australia, dia kata jangan tutup tanah saya. They don't want you to dig the land for the uranium or the waste, okay. So I think overall, I mean from the beginning, the processing of the digging of the waste, of the solid ore, processing, and then final refining and utilization. Because typically they will generate around 200 tons of waste at least. 200,000 tons of waste, yeah, when the nuclear power plant is decommissioned, 200,000 tons. And that is a long time, it's a very, very long time. And then I think there is a problem with plutonium. I think many countries want nuclear power plant, they want to get plutonium and then hopefully refine and become a weapon grade material. So I think banyak masalah lah.
Thank you.
I think I must make one correction. I think I said something about plutonium. Half-life is not 240,000, it's 24,400 years. That's 240 centuries. Still a very, very long time. So we're talking about plutonium for forever, really. 240 centuries. 24,400 years.
I think what I said earlier basically covers it. If we keep nuclear as far away as possible by adopting energy efficiency and renewable energy to the extent that it can. Please don't forget, renewable energy is not the panacea. Germany has spent, I think, more than 100 billion euros to support renewable energy, and yet its total renewable energy contributes only about 13% of its energy requirements. That's over about 1.5 decades. Yes. 40 gigawatts of 38 gigawatts of the solar, but it produces only about 3% of the energy. So let's be clear about what we need. Consumer needs energy, not just kilowatts. You can have 5 kilowatts, you will be able to run your 1 kilowatt refrigerator or motor for probably only about 2 hours a day. That's not enough. So we have to look at it from that perspective. Like I say, in terms of requirements, keep it away as far as possible. We hope for the most safe and needs for the consumers. There's a talk by Dr. Emery Lovins on what he calls deep energy efficiency. This was a few years ago, but I think still valid. I can give you the link. What he says is in 29, the total oil supply use was about 85 million barrels a day, and by deep energy efficiency, the world can reduce that to less than 10 million barrels a day, which means you're basically reducing about 70%. Now, I don't think that's possible. And I always say, question everything. What seems to be too good to be true is usually too good. And that applies to renewable energy, graphene, as well as algae development. don't forget, we have about 3 trillion megawatts of power to be used, and with an average capacity factor of about 40 to 70%. And that's a lot of terawatt hours of energy. You cannot get that from renewable energy, even if you increase the present capacity of renewable energy by 300 times. Reason one, let's forget about nuclear. Take a combined cycle power plant which generates 7,000 megawatt hours a year for 1 megawatt. You will need at least 5 times as much PV with storage capacity to be able to generate and use that energy. And that's far too costly and not practical with the losses. And if you have storage through batteries, that's toxic, that's not green. In fact, a couple of years ago, at an ICES forum, the representative of the European Photovoltaic Industry Association made what I call a stupid comment to say, oh, with storage, PV can serve the country and PV is clean and green. And I told him to call PV with storage clean and green is an oxymoron. Of course, Badria didn't like it.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. McCoy, do you want to add on the radioactive waste, saying that nuclear is not clean energy? Quick one.
I think to me the greatest objection to nuclear energy is this whole problem of radioactive waste. And you know, they've been working at this question of nuclear waste for ever since the beginning of the nuclear age, and we still haven't found an answer to this. And I think it's too serious a problem to be put to the side and say we'll deal with it, we'll find a way in the future. We cannot do this, you know, with radioactive waste. Once you have radioactive, you've got it almost forever. What are you going to do with it? Is this the kind of legacy you want to leave future generations? Your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren? Come on. I mean, this is totally unacceptable. It's immoral. So we must stop this government plan to build a nuclear power plant in this country. And we must. Now, there are some pro-nuclear energy people in this forum, I think. Let's hear your views on this. Come on, let's have the other side. Anybody like to talk about
I think we go with this first.
I just want to add a little bit. What Dr. McCoy said earlier about the 240,000, that is the storage for plutonium. Okay, he said that there's no safe way of storing waste. Actually, we have it in Papan, Bukit Merah. They just put it there in the virgin forest, and the half-life of thorium is 14.6 billion years. So our another you know, for millions of years will be there to enjoy the radiation. So there's a safest way and cheapest way. Virgin tropical forest of Malaysia.
Okay. So tadi kita dah go through dasar bantahan. 1, tidak murah. 2, tidak selamat. 3, tidak bersih. Not cheap, not safe, not clean. So dasar bantahan nombor 4. Malaysia tidak perlu mendirikan loji tenaga nuklear bagi tujuan penjanaan elektrik kerana penjanaan sekarang dan yang sudah dirancang serta dari sumber-sumber lain mencukupi. That's Aman punya stand. Prof. Lacan cakap tadi sampai 20-25. Aman research team kata sampai 20-50 easily. And that's kita belum buat sampai 22,100 lah. Kita baru buat sampai 20-50. Easily we have enough for our energy. Ini belum cerita energy efficiency lagi, belum cerita keberkesanan tenaga lagi yang kita akan cuba faham dalam dasar bantahan nombor 4. Kita mengatakan kita tidak perlukan loji nuklear di Malaysia because we have enough power for at least until 2050 or 2025 as per Prof. Lanchan's what he mentioned. So without further ado, I would like to invite Prof. Lanchan tanya soalan, adakah dia setuju Malaysia tidak perlukan loji nuklear?
Seperti saya kata tadi, Malaysia tidak perlukan loji nuklear sehingga korang-korang 2025. Tapi kalau Aman ada data-data untuk sampai 2050, saya akan sangat gembira untuk dapat dan menyaksikan dan mengkaji sama ada itu betul. Like I say, I question everything. And to tell you what I question everything, I even question our government's decisions. Because I have facts that are published information which don't match. And these are policy statements. Now, I'd just like to quote a little bit from, I don't know how many of you know about the sunscreen song. One of those that I always like to quote is, accept certain inalienable truths. Prices will rise, politicians will philander, you too will get old. And when you do, you will fantasize that when you were young, prices were reasonable, politicians were noble, and children respect their elders. Now, what I feel rather disconcerted about in governance, and I've said this in front of government ministries, there's a serious crisis of credibility in the truth and honesty of the government of the country today. Let me give you some quotes. Number one, in 2011, there were projections of power demand and energy mix by Kekal, ST, and EPU, and none of them matched. One of them said that by 2030, we will need 50% of our generating capacity to be nuclear. Another said that by 2035, we need 5,000 megawatts of nuclear. Another said we only have 6% of nuclear by 2025. Now, which is correct? They are all from government, authorized government agencies, public domain documents. And I have personally questioned a number of these issues. I also have said that government policies are sometimes self-contradictory. Can we believe government? At a recent ministry meeting, when the audience was asked, can't you trust the government to do what it says? I said bluntly no. And that was recorded as part of the proceedings. Now, let me say why. We talk of the Renewable Energy Act getting a lot of energy from biomass power plants because there's supposed to be abundant biomass waste. That was true 15 years ago. It's not true today. 15 years ago, oil mills used to pay about 6 ringgit a ton to get rid of their waste, that's empty fruit bunches. Today, when power plant operators are asking them 30 to 40 ringgit a ton, they say no, because the national biomass strategy has, from some fantasy, created a value that biomass is worth between 160 to 1,000 tons, 1,000 ringgit per ton. It's too costly to burn for power generation. So, renewable energy policy, national biomass strategy, contradictory, and screwed up the renewable energy policy of the country. Now, I would say this, we will be able to do away without nuclear plant, in fact even some coal, up to 2025 or maybe a bit later, if we adopt energy efficiency seriously and the government supports it. And go more on renewable energy and not just photovoltaics.
2050? 2050?
Give me the facts and I'll give you the questions and reasons. If you can answer my reasons and questions, I would accept that. Like I say, I question everything. And I've questioned a lot on international forums on LinkedIn. And let me just quote you. This was quoted in my presentation to IEM. I had an argument with the Spanish specialists on power supply. They said their renewable energy from wind and PV generates X amount of gigawatt hours. And I said, that is not economic. And then he questioned me several times on this, until finally I told him, your own figures show that you have 3 times the amount of renewable energy capacity to generate less energy than nuclear plant, right? Which is of a lower 1/3 the capacity. And he said, oh, now I see what you mean. So he is an expert, and because of their nuclear energy being run as a supporting backup power, their nuclear plants are operating very uneconomically at less than 60% capacity factor. And I think anybody involved in this will say base load plant should operate at not less than 80 to 85% capacity factor.
Thank you Prof. Lalchan. Just untuk semua orang ketahui dekat Malaysia, penggunaan elektrik kita antara yang paling membazir dekat ASEAN. We use a lot. And kita punya perkakas elektrik is not efficient. So as of this year, our consumption highest peak was 17,000 megawatt around there, which kalau kita buat dengan betul, kita mungkin boleh reduce consumption mungkin hanya 12,000 megawatt. So daripada keberkesanan teknologi, macam Prof. Lacan cakap, efficient EE sahaja boleh reduce macam tu. Kalau nak cuba illustrate apa yang kita patut buat dengan apa yang kita sedang lakukan, ada satu kita panggil piramid. Piramid keberkesanan tenaga atau way to conserve energy. Dekat bawah piramid ni is conservation. Maksudnya kita conserve energy. Malam tak pakai tutup, aircon tak pakai tutup, that is conservation. Once conservation has been done, we are go further up is efficient energy, keberkesanan kuasa generasi. Kalau kita tengok insulation lah, macam wire tu kita insulate so heat tak loss. So banyak benda yang kita boleh buat easily reduce consumption. And kita dekat ASEAN antara yang negara yang paling membazir dalam penggunaan tenaga elektrik. Yang dalam forum ni mungkin rasa macam marah je, suka-suka je cakap kita paling membazir, kita paling miskin juga, kaya miskin besar semua Malaysia kan. So jangan marah, tenang, okay? Dan piramid paling atas tu is renewable energy. Maksudnya dah buat conservation, dah buat energy efficiency, baru go renewable energy. But what we are doing in Malaysia, kita buat terbalik. Kita start dengan renewable energy, efficiency energy tak pernah langsung sentuh, and conservation pun tak pernah sentuh lagi. We start cara tak betul. And saya ternampak ada pakar EE dalam forum ni, dan saya rasa bagus kita panggil, if panelists don't mind, I would like to invite Mr. Zaini, an EE expert, talk for at least 5 minutes. Apa itu energy efficiency and how much can we get from that. Katakan 20,000 megawatt in 5 years time our usage, kita boleh jimat EE 30%. Dah 6,000 gigawatt. 6,000 gigawatt is equivalent to 6 loji nuklear. Kita nak buat 2. Tapi kalau kita boleh buat EE, we don't need 6 nuclear power plant. Sekarang kita nak buat 2, we don't need 6. So my negative 4. Okay. So saya jemput Encik Zaini jika sudi datang ke pentas for 5 minutes. I'm very happy to see him here today. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. I'm nervous. You know why? Because I was in the government 8 years for the policy making, EE, RE as well, Mr. Lan. And now I just left the government 2 years ago. I'm quite risky to me to be here because I just started my new business, you know.